Joining us today is Cilla Robinson, Senior Associate Workplace Relations, Employment and Safety at Clayton Utz, who'll be speaking at IIR's Sexual Harassment in the Workplace Forum, which takes place on the 6th and 7th of December 2010 in Sydney. Hello Cilla, thanks for joining us today.
Hi James, how are you going?
First of all, why did the David Jones case send shudders through the boardrooms and offices alike?
Look James, I think that the case had such a big impact because it showed a well-respected company with a professionally well-regarded CEO who was a great performer fall very quickly from grace. Obviously, the punitive damages aspect of the claim, the big $37 million that we saw, created headlines and was serious cause for concern for boardrooms and officers alike. In the Australian market, the prospect that a court might order punitive damages is a serious concern, and like most lawyers, I personally believe that was a very unlikely outcome, but it certainly did push the envelope. To put it in context, to date the highest order for an Australian court for a sexual harassment case is $466,000, and that was in a situation where the employee was subjected to extreme and systematic repeated sexual harassment, so that it can be distinguished quite significantly from the circumstances that Fraser Kirk allegedly endured. The other aspect of the claim which concerned companies and boards, I think, is the innovative manner in which it was pleaded, which isn't the usual path for sexual harassment claims. This case wasn't just a sexual harassment case, which is why it was novel. It was a claim in the federal court involving a Trade Practices Act claim regarding misleading and deceptive conduct, and it involved breach of contract, trespass, and then there were additional claims in relation to breach of the Sex Discrimination Act, the Fair Work Act, the OHS Act, and the Fair Trading Act. So it was a very unusual case. It wasn't just a sexual harassment case, but certainly if the case had gone ahead, it could have potentially created a trade practices route that would have been a much quicker path for making claims of sexual harassment.
How is it possible then that one of Australia's largest and most gender diverse and successful companies could have allegedly concealed, condoned and allowed such behaviour at the very top?
Look, I think it's important to acknowledge from the get-go that whilst some of the allegations against McInnes have been admitted by him, the DJs actually denies the allegations that it condoned or concealed the alleged behaviour. But still, you do have to question how a CEO of 7 years who's been responsible for an excellent turnaround of the company could actually find himself in this situation. And I hazard a guess that arrogance and the stupidity played a part if the allegations are actually true, and possibly a lack of understanding about what actually constitutes sexual harassment. As far as DJs is concerned, it had stated values, a code of conduct, and policies in place addressing the issues. The company acted immediately to accept the resignation of McInnes and claimed that it was an isolated incident and that there was no culture of harassment at DJs. So certainly you do see cases where sexual harassment has been allowed at the top of organisations and senior people have gone to enormous efforts to cover it up. But this case just isn't one of them. Obviously, Fraser Kirk's evidence is that McInnes' behaviour was well known and that she was one of many victims. Obviously, now that the matter is settled, we'll never know the truth behind the allegations, but the relevant issue for DJs is what did they know or what should they have known about McInnes' conduct. Obviously, there's certainly a lot of rumours about McInnes being a ladies' man and paying attention to female staff. If DJs was aware of this, should they have acted on a rumour? That's a pretty big ask to expect of an employer. One of the most damaging aspects of the claim, I think, is the assertion that Anne-Marie Kelly, the PR general manager at David Jones, said to Fraser Kirk after she complained about Mr McInnes' behaviour, next time it happens you need to be clear and say no mark and he'll back off. Now that's denied by DJs, but if it's true, it indicates that people within the company, and I stress that not necessarily the board, but if that is true, people were aware of the behaviour and by not taking steps to stop it could be seen to be condoning it. Obviously, the allegations reflect poorly on an organisation that has staunchly defended its policies on sexual harassment and discrimination, but the emerging evidence we are finding are that policies alone aren't working, and I can only hazard a guess that perhaps that's what has happened with DJs.
You're speaking at IIR's Sexual Harassment in the Workplace Forum 2010, which takes place on the 6th and 7th of December in Sydney. What key aspects will you be addressing in your presentation?
My presentation will be about the practical lessons that we can learn from the DJ's case. I'll deal with the detail of the DJ's case in terms of what's been pleaded, what has been denied or admitted by the parties, and the polarised positions of Fraser Kirk, DJs and McInnes. In terms of the lessons that we can take, I'll discuss the need to focus on board duties, and as I mentioned before, there's a real need to lead from the top down and ensure a positive culture. I'll also talk about corporate governance, and specifically the ASX corporate governance recommendations that have been made, and this is important because bullying and harassment of women in the workplace is a real issue, and it's likely caused in part by the lack of women on boards and within senior management. So that I will touch on the ASX recommendations about this. I'll also be talking about policies, ensuring that our standards of behaviour and expectations of staff are reflected in our policies and codes. As I mentioned before, ensuring that we act as we say we will. It's, I think, important to realise that not all cases are from small companies, and there's a wide range from all businesses, big and small, so it's not enough to have a policy, and this alone won't prevent sexual harassment. Finally, I'll be talking about the need to have mechanisms in place for dealing with sexual harassment, because a company that's seen not to have these in place can suffer serious brand damage if a matter becomes public. And similarly, it's important that once an issue does become public, that they manage the statements made. So really the theme of the session will be that it's not only about sexual harassment, that it's about all behaviour, culture and workplace conduct, and that all of these things have the potential to expose a company to serious ramifications. And in terms of the key risks that I'll be identifying, I'll discuss things like condoning bad conduct of high performers, ineffective complaints procedures and policies, risk management and response, and an issue of lack of education, parity of treatment and consistency.
Cilla Robinson, many thanks for your time today.
No worries at all.